In this video, we're going to cover everything to do with the job schedule. There's quite a bit to it, so this will be a longer video, but we'll go over how to create a schedule, how it changes if you're starting from an estimate schedule, how to move tasks around, adjust progress, and manage everything day to day. We'll also look at assigning tasks, sending reminders, and booking confirmations. Then we'll cover how the schedule connects with the Onsite app, and finally, the export and sharing options. Jumping into my account now, and the first question is, how do you set up the schedule? Well, that depends a bit on what you've done before reaching this point. If we hop back in time for a second, back to when I was still creating the estimate, you'll notice that the estimating side has its own schedule tab. We call this the estimate schedule, and this is where you can start drafting your schedule. Here you can add tasks, set start and end dates, and even color code things to stay organized. And this could be for a couple reasons. Say you'd like to do some basic time planning, or maybe you'd like to give your client a rough time frame for the work. And I say draft your schedule because at this stage, you can't yet assign tasks to people or track progress. Once you convert that estimate into a job, that's when you'll see the second schedule tab appear. Turning that estimate into a job will also lock this estimate schedule from being edited, as you can see here. And any changes going forward will take place in the job schedule. This new tab automatically pulls in everything you built in your estimate schedule, and this is where your schedule really comes to life. From here, you can make edits, assign tasks, and update progress as the work gets done. In this example, I did start by using the Estimate Schedule tab just to draft things out, but if you don't, that's okay. Nothing is lost without it. When you want to start adding tasks to your schedule, there are two options. Either add them in manually from your Schedules tab, where you have the option to add new category, and alongside every category title is a plus button to add tasks within it. When you add a new category or line item, it will drop to the bottom of the list, but you can rearrange these just by dragging and dropping them. Now, the other option for adding tasks to your schedule actually begins when you're building your estimate. Inside the Estimate Costings tab, you'll notice a little T button beside each line item. The T stands for task, and this is a quick shortcut that lets you pull items from your estimate directly into your schedule as tasks. This saves you from manually adding everything one by one. When you click that T button, it'll bring the line item's description straight over to your schedule. It also recognizes which category it's in and places it in the same order you have it set up in your estimate. So, a handy tip for this, if you plan on using the T button, it helps to organize your categories and line items roughly in the same order you'd actually work through them on the job site. That way, when you pull everything over, it's already in a logical sequence and you don't have to spend much time rearranging later. One quick thing to note about the T button, if you try to click it for a line item that doesn't have a cost, it won't pull that item into your schedule. And you'll notice it kind of fades out or turns this ghostly gray color. In that case, no big deal, you'll just want to add that task in manually. The schedule I'm showing here was actually built using both methods. I used the T button to bring in items directly from my estimate, and then for anything that wasn't listed there, things I still needed to track in my schedule, I just added those in manually. And if you're already thinking, I don't want to have to do that every time, clicking the T buttons or adding the tasks manually for each new job, don't worry. That's exactly why we have schedule templates. So let's say you're working on a job and realize the schedule you've built would make a great starting point for future projects. You can save it as a template. It's super simple to do, and I'll show you how a little later on, but before that, let's continue with the basics. And just to give a quick lay of the land, there are two main ways to view your schedule. On the left, you've got the list view, which breaks everything down into easy-to-read columns, things like the start date, duration, and who each task is assigned to. Then, over on the right, you'll see the Gantt chart, which is the visual version of our schedule. Right now, mine's collapsed down, so we're just seeing the categories. If you want to expand those and see the tasks within each category, you can use the Expand/Collapse button on the top left to open or close everything at once. Or you can use the little arrows beside each category to expand or collapse them individually. To move around, you can use the scroll bar on the right to go up and down through your list. and the scroll bar at the bottom to move through dates left and right on the Gantt chart. There's also a red line here that represents today's date. Now, earlier we looked at where to add categories and line items, but let's dig into that a little more. When you add a category, you'll be prompted to give it a title. That's the most important part. You'll also see options to set start and end dates and assign that category to a specific person if you'd like. My suggestion is to start by building out all your categories and the tasks that live under them first. Once that's in place, you can come back and start adjusting dates, durations, and the assignments. After I've added my categories and tasks, I like to start color coding to make things easier to track visually. While you're adding a new category, you'll see a small black dot to the right of the category name. Click that, and a drop-down of color options will appear. I'll change this one to blue, and you'll see that update right away in the Gantt chart. Now, all the tasks under that category are blue too. So for example, I can visually associate blue with general requirements. You can change the category colors anytime, either by clicking the category directly in the Gantt chart or by double-clicking the category name in the list view on the left. And that brings me to my next point. You can edit your schedule from either the list view or the Gantt chart. It mostly comes down to personal preference. Once I've finished color coding, the next thing I like to do is start adjusting my dates and durations. Like I mentioned earlier, you can double-click into a task from the list view to make changes, but the most common and honestly the easiest way to do this is right from the Gantt chart, which is what I'll demonstrate. If you'd like to move the start date of a category and all the tasks within it, just click somewhere near the center of that category bar, hold, and drag where you want it. You can do the exact same thing with individual tasks. Just click, drag, and drop them into the right spot. Now, if you want to extend the duration, click and drag the small dots on the right edge of a task. You'll see the bar stretch as you move, and once you release, it'll snap into place. As you start shifting tasks around within a category, you'll notice the overall category bar automatically expands to cover the full start and end range of all the tasks inside it. While we scroll through the schedule here, you'll notice some of the dates are grayed out, like the 11th and 12th, or the 18th and 19th. Those are weekends, and by default, BuildExact assumes you don't work on weekends. This is a setting that you can change if you do work on weekends, but as it is right now, if a task happens to fall across a weekend, those dates aren't counted towards the task's duration. For example, if I drag this task so it stretches over a weekend, it might look like it spans 4 days visually, but the actual duration is still only 2 days, and you can see that reflected in the duration column on the left. Then, if I move the task back so it no longer overlaps with the weekend, you'll see it snap back to that 2-day visual in the Gantt chart. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a setting you can change. Up at the top right of your schedule, you'll see a little gear icon, and when you click that, you'll get a list of setting options. From there, click Weekends and Non-Working Days. This will open a side panel where you can adjust a few things. First, you'll see a toggle for Exclude Weekends and Duration. If you want weekends included in your task's duration, just uncheck that option to turn it off. Below that, you'll find a calendar where you can mark other non-working days, like holidays or company shutdowns, basically any time no work will be happening on site. Once those are marked, BuildExact will automatically exclude those dates from your task durations, the same way it does for weekends. At the bottom of that panel, you'll also see a summary, how many non-working days you've set for the year, how many have already passed, and how many are still remaining. This calendar is shared across your entire account, so any updates here will apply to all of your job schedules. That's why it's usually a good idea to come in early and mark your non-working days. I'll go ahead and press close, and I'm also going to start moving a few things around and adding durations just a bit more so it would look similar to what your actual schedule would look like. Now, as you go on, you can also add dependencies, which is really where we tell the schedule that one task is dependent on another. For example, I can't start work on installing the new tile unless we've finished the demo of the existing tile. That means the install of the new tile is dependent on the demo of the existing tile being done. So if the demo work gets delayed, so will the tile installation. and other things. There could be multiple dependencies that trickle down, and we can reflect those dependencies in the schedule in two ways. If you hover over a task, you'll notice little dots or bubbles on both the left and right-hand side of the taskbar. To create a dependency, click and hold the bubble on the right side of one task, then drag it over to the left side of another task. That connects the two and creates what we call an end-to-start dependency, meaning this task can't start until the previous one finishes. That's the setup you'd use for something like our earlier example with the tile demo and install. There's also an option to create a start-to-start dependency, which is useful when you want two tasks to begin at the same time if that timing overlap is important to your schedule. And like I said, you can create multiple dependencies. So if one task impacts a few things, you do the same thing. And if you ever do need to delete a dependency, just double-click on the dependencies line and you'll see an option to delete it. There is another setting related to this that lives under the gear button over on the top right, and in there you'll find an option called Automatic Dependencies. Most of the time, you'll leave this turned off, but it can be really handy in certain situations, like when you need to move a bunch of tasks at once. For example, let's say there's a few days of bad weather, and that pushes the whole schedule out a bit. If I turn on Automatic Dependencies and then move one task, that task, along with everything below it, will automatically shift with it, top to bottom. So I'll turn it on, drag this task forward a couple of days, and you'll see all the tasks below it move with it. Then, once the delay is over and things are back on track, I'll turn Automatic Dependencies back off. That way, future edits only affect the tasks I've manually linked together. This is also a great feature to use when you need to make bulk adjustments quickly. Just remember to toggle it back off when you're done. All right, now we've got our schedule all set up. We've color-coded it, set our start and end dates, and linked our dependencies. The next step would normally be assigning tasks to your crew. But before we jump into that, let's quickly cover how to save schedule templates, like we talked about earlier. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see the Templates button. When you click it, you'll have the option to Save as Template. That'll prompt you to give your template a name, and in this case, let's say Kitchen Remodel. Here, you'll also see a quick summary of what's included in that template. Your categories and tasks, dependencies, durations, days between tasks, and any notes. I'll go ahead and press Save, and now that template is ready to use in the future. When you want to apply it, just click Templates again, find the one you want, click once more, and click Apply Selected Template. Before it loads in, you'll get a few options for how you want to apply it. You can choose whether to remove the existing tasks in your schedule and replace them with the template, or add the template after the existing tasks. You can also adjust the start date and choose exactly which elements from the template you'd like to pull in. You can also edit or delete templates anytime, and like in other areas of Build Exact, saving templates is a really handy way to speed up setup for future jobs. Okay, back to assigning tasks to your crew. The easiest way to do this is right from the Gantt chart. Just click on the task you want to assign, and you'll see an option to search contacts. This dropdown pulls from your contacts phone book. That's where Build Exact stores all your contact information for employees, subcontractors, suppliers, and anyone else you work with. If the person you're looking for isn't already there, you can click Create New Contact, and adding them here will automatically save them to your contacts for future use. I'll go ahead and assign someone here, and you can assign multiple people to a single task if you need to, and near the bottom you'll see options to send reminders. You can also include a message with the reminder. Maybe it's directions for accessing the site, a note about materials or contact details if they have any questions. And I've actually sent myself a reminder here so we can see what it looks like from the assignee's perspective. And I'll go ahead and jump over to my email. Here's what the reminder looks like, and you can see the task's description, the date, the job name, and any notes I included. And there's nothing that the recipient needs to do here. It's just a helpful reminder. And that brings us to booking confirmations. Going back to Build Exact, at the top right of the schedule, you'll see the Booking Confirmations button. This lets you send a confirmation request to those assigned to a task. You can choose who you want to send it to here, and once it's sent, you'll see a small dot appear next to that person's name in the assignee column next to their initials. That dot indicates you've sent the request, and if you hover over it, you'll see the current status, which will show as sent. I'll head back to my email again to see what that looks like from the assignee's perspective, and here is our booking confirmation email, and it too includes the job name and the tasks they're assigned to, and this time there is a call to action for them to choose whether they accept or decline. I'll click accept, and then I'm going to head back over to my schedule in Build Exact, where now you'll see that the dot next to their name has turned green, and when I hover over it, it shows accepted. Had they declined, that dot would appear red, and the message would say declined. Now, one common question we get is, what happens if the task's date changes? If you move a task to a new date, that confirmation dot will disappear because the original confirmation was for the previous date. But you can resend the booking confirmation to make sure the crew members confirms the updated timing by prompting the booking confirmation again. Next, let's move on to how the schedule connects with the Onsite app. There are separate videos that go deeper into the app itself, but here's a quick version. In the settings of the little gear button, there is the option to sync to Onsite. What this will do is any tasks assigned to people will appear in their list of tasks within the app, where they can toggle progress and mark them complete. If you log into the app as a main Build Exact user, you'll see all the tasks and who they are assigned to. But invited users, like your crew and your subcontractors, will only see the tasks assigned to them specifically. Now, on that point of toggling progress, there are a few different ways you can do it here in the desktop. You can toggle progress directly from the Gantt chart. If you hover over a task, you'll see a little arrow along the bottom, and that's a drag and drop control for tracking progress. And as you move it, you're marking how far along you are on the task. As soon as you start updating progress, you'll notice a small orange bubble appear next to the task in the list view. That indicates it's in progress. And once you mark it as complete, that bubble turns green to show it's done. If you prefer to measure progress by a percentage, you can also double-click into the task from the list view and adjust the progress percentage manually, either by clicking the plus and minus button or typing in a number yourself. It really just comes down to personal preference. You can even update progress for an entire category at once. So instead of moving the progress for each task individually, you could say we're about 50% done with everything under existing conditions and toggle progress at the category level. One last thing to note here, if a task gets delayed, for example, if I move a task to yesterday's date and I haven't marked it as complete yet, you'll see a red exclamation point appear. That's Build Exact's way of flagging that the task was delayed. And once you mark it complete, that icon will disappear and switch to green. Okay, so we are getting close to the end now, so let's talk about sharing and exporting your schedule. You'll find the share button at the top right of the schedule, and just to clarify, when we talk about sharing here, we're referring to documents that you can produce and share outside of the Onsite app. When you click share, you'll see two types of documents you can export or send. The first is the Gantt chart, which is the visual version of our schedule, exactly what you see on screen, and you can choose a date range, either from the drop-down or by setting a custom range, and then select your file type, usually a PDF or an image. And just note that however your Gantt chart is expanded or collapsed on this screen is exactly how it will appear in the exported document. I'll go ahead and download one here, and you can see it's the same visual as in Build Exact, just tailored to your chosen date range, and you can also choose the email option instead of download to send it directly to your client, project manager, or anyone else. The second option is the task list, which is basically the same as our list view on the left-hand side of our schedule, and it's a great high-level summary of your schedule that's really easy to share and print. And that covers our shareable documents. Now, one last quick tip, if you want to view your schedule in full screen, just click the two diagonal arrows on the left-hand side. And if that feels a little too big and you want to go back, just press the escape button on your keyboard to return to normal view. And that's everything for the job schedule. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know.